think generally speaking the understanding is pretty good. We've done a lot of survey work in the region, and if you look at this year versus last year, when we talked to CIOs about what their key priorities were, last year it was very much about data center transformation, but this year it's very much about data center consolidation. And I think in terms of data center consolidation, it's pretty easy to understand the whole dynamics behind it, and most CIOs are okay with that. What they don't tend to understand perhaps is that many of the steps you need to take towards data center consolidation are actually the steps you also need to take towards data center transformation. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to consolidate without transforming the data center. And perhaps there's a little bit of a disconnect with Asian CIOs in terms of how they see these things progressing. Technology is mature enough by now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that is enough for Asian enterprises to actually take that step. There's still a growing divide between perception and actual technology maturity. Most of the technologies, if not all the technologies needed to do that data center consolidation and even transformation of your data center are available today. Most of the larger vendors can supply you with solutions that can help you. However, there's still a lot of little nitbits of the whole ecosystem that most CIOs are not really aware of or not really comfortable with, especially when it comes to the data centers being up and running totally all the time, and especially around the security issues. So the technology is there, but I don't think the market, especially in Asia, are quite convinced that the technology is there. The data center side, it's basically the whole thing about having your whole IT up and running while you transform your data center or while you consolidate your data center sites. And of course there are issues about where to place your data center. Can you do it on a regional basis? Do you need to be in each country you're in? But these are usually not only technical issues, there can also be regulatory issues that you need to comply with. So it can be sector specific in the finance sector, or it can be country specific with regards to China or India in terms of where your data can reside in the data center. So data center consolidation sounds like a great idea for a lot of companies, but it's not necessarily totally possible across the region for all companies. On the cloud computing side, it's more a question of being aware that there are actually services out there that you can buy into. In Asia, we're still seeing less, should we say, fully fledged offerings than we're seeing in other places in the world. So a lot of the companies that have started out in Asia, that have started out in the US, like Amazon's EC2, only recently, actually today, announced that they were starting up in Asia as well. So a lot of the services available in North America and Europe haven't necessarily been available across the board in Asia. When it comes to implementing these things, however, there's another issue. It's not just a technology issue, it's very much about a policy issue and about how you have the transformation sort of progressed down through your organization at work. Usually, and that goes for data centers as well as the applications you have running on these data centers, and certainly for cloud computing and cloud services, it's really down to the users in the end. And cloud services are only really valuable, you can only get the real value out of them if you make sure that everybody uses them in the way they're supposed to be used, just like any other kind of IT. But we do find that that's perhaps a little bit of a steep learning curve for a lot of associations, a lot of companies in Asia, to make sure that everybody in the organization are using these in the way they're supposed to. That's a bit of a difficult question to answer, because it very much depends on the enterprise and the regulatory environment you're in, for example. In general, we're not quite there yet where you can say that cloud computing can take over everything. I think there's pretty much a consensus of that in the industry. We're also not there yet where we have one provider that can provide you with everything. So it's certainly not a single vendor landscape in terms of just handing everything over. That doesn't mean that you don't necessarily, that there wouldn't necessarily be a migration path for all types of businesses and all types of businesses within the enterprise for going cloud in the future. It's just a matter of where you are on that scale right now. Typically what we see is that we see horizontal applications in the enterprise going onto cloud first. So in the same way you saw companies outsourcing part of their business years ago, you might see the same thing being outsourced in a sense, or going to cloud on the IT side. So you can outsource or you can go cloud with your Salesforce management, or with your CRM, or with your HR system, and we're seeing offerings in the market for these things, of course. Or you can go even across the board. You can go cloud with your email and calendaring solutions. So we're seeing these piecemeal adoptions of cloud. We're not seeing total enterprise adoption of cloud yet. That doesn't mean it's not necessarily possible to do so, but we have yet to see, for good reasons, any company jumping in with both legs and saying, now we're going 100% cloud. So I wouldn't necessarily encourage any companies to do that at this stage either. I think it is, you need to have a leveled approach as to how you implement cloud, but cloud, in terms of the mind share it should have with our Asian CIOs, it should be part of your strategy. You have to sit down and say, where do I want to be with my IT in 5 years' time, and is cloud something that can take me there? In many cases, the question, or the answer to that question will be yes.